Eli's cabin sat nestled deep within the ancient forest, far from the bustle of any town or village. It was a small, weather-beaten shelter, made of rough-hewn logs darkened by years of rain and smoke. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of pine and wood smoke, a comforting reminder of simpler days. Outside, the trees whispered with the wind, their branches swaying like silent sentinels guarding Eli's solitude. The war had left its mark on Eli in ways no one could see but him. His hands were steady but worn, his face lined with shadows of sleepless nights and memories better left buried. He had arrived at this place broken and scarred, not just by bullets and battles, but by the heavy weight of loss. His world had been torn apart, piece by piece, by the relentless grind of conflict and the faces of those he could never forget. At his side, always, was Rex, his faithful dog, a rugged black-coated companion with bright, intelligent eyes. Rex had been with him through the worst of it all, a steady presence amid chaos and despair. The dog's quiet companionship was a balm to Eli's restless mind, grounding him when the memories threatened to swallow him whole. Eli spent long hours sitting by the hearth, staring into the flickering flames as if searching for answers in the dance of shadows. Nearby, a worn wooden box held his most precious keepsakes, old photographs, yellowed and curling at the edges. Each picture captured moments frozen in time, smiling faces of friends lost to the war, distant places where they had laughed and hoped before the darkness came. He fingered the photographs gently, tracing the outlines of faces he remembered as clearly as his own heartbeat. Men who had become brothers, taken too soon by the unyielding hand of fate. They were ghosts now, shadows that haunted his every waking thought. The photos didn't answer his questions, they only deepened them, stirring a painful longing for a past that felt forever just out of reach. Rex shifted closer, nudging Eli's hand with his cold nose. "You're not alone anymore, are you, boy?" Eli whispered, voice rough with years of unshed grief. Rex responded with a soft bark, a sound filled with quiet understanding. In that moment, the silence between them was not empty. It was full of something fragile and precious, a bond that had survived the worst the world had thrown at them. Outside, the forest stretched endlessly, a living tapestry of green and shadow. Eli knew every tree and path, every hidden clearing and tangled root. It was a place of refuge and reflection, where he could lose himself in the whisper of leaves and the distant call of birds. But no matter how far he wandered, the past followed him like a shadow, always lurking just beyond the edge of vision. Each morning brought the same struggle, trying to reconcile the man he had been with the man he had become. He had marched off to war filled with youthful hope and fierce ideals. Now, he was a man weighed down by invisible wounds that no medicine could heal. The faces of the fallen, the brutal choices made in the fog of battle, clung to him like an unshakable chain. Yet, through it all, Rex remained Eli's anchor. The dog followed him everywhere, through tangled underbrush and along worn trails. His unwavering loyalty was a reminder that even in the darkest times, connection endured. With Rex by his side, Eli felt a flicker of something he hadn't dared to feel in years: hope. And so day after day, Eli sat by his fire, the photographs beside him, the dog at his feet, and allowed himself the quiet comfort of their shared presence. The past was a heavy burden, but in the companionship of his dog, the lonely nights were a little less cold, and the memories a little less sharp. The night wrapped around Eli's cabin like a heavy shroud, thick with silence and shadows that seemed to breathe with their own hidden life. Despite the quiet, Eli's mind was anything but still. The memory of what he'd seen earlier that day clung to him like a stubborn fog, an image so vivid it haunted the edges of his thoughts, refusing to fade. He couldn't explain it, not fully. How could he? A figure had stood there in the depths of the forest, just beyond the reach of the firelight, a soldier, unmoving, eyes wide and unblinking, as if carved from the very darkness itself. The presence was impossible to ignore. It pressed against Eli's skin, heavy and cold, like the weight of 1,000 unsaid words and unfinished stories. Was it a ghost? A trick of the mind, twisted by loneliness and the scars of war? Eli shook his head, trying to banish the thought, but his heart betrayed him with a sudden, sharp pang of unease. He had never been a man given to superstition. Battles had taught him to rely on what was real, what he could see, touch, fight against. But now, after everything, what was real had become a shifting, uncertain thing. Max, his dog, was undisturbed by the night's strange visitation. The dog lay curled at the foot of Eli's bed, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, the gentle sound a soft counterpoint to Eli's restless breath. Max's calmness was a small comfort in the midst of the storm in Eli's mind, a reminder that some parts of the world remained unchanging, loyal. But sleep was a stranger to Eli. His eyes flickered open beneath closed lids, his thoughts circling endlessly around the that silent soldier. He replayed the image, searching for clues, desperate to unravel the mystery that had wrapped itself around his heart. When dawn finally crept over the horizon, pale and tentative, Eli rose with a resolve he hadn't felt in weeks. The need for answers was a fire burning low but steady inside him. He dressed quickly, the chill of the morning biting through his clothes, and stepped outside. Max was instantly alert, tail wagging softly, but eyes sharp and watchful as they moved together toward the spot where the soldier had appeared. The forest greeted them with a thick blanket of fog, tendrils of mist curling between the trunks like restless spirits. The world seemed muted, colors dulled beneath the soft gray light of early morning. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves sounded amplified in the stillness. At the clearing, Eli's breath caught. He scanned the ground carefully. There was no sign of footsteps, no broken twigs or disturbed earth. It was as if the soldier had been a ghost in the truest sense, here and gone without leaving a trace. Max sniffed around, circling the clearing, nostrils flaring as he searched the air. Then the dog stopped, sitting down abruptly at a small patch of earth, eyes fixed on Eli with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. The look was urgent, filled with a silent message that Eli struggled to understand. "What is it, boy?" Eli asked softly, crouching beside Max to scratch behind his ears, but the dog remained silent, only the faint whisper of the forest around them responding. Eli's fingers brushed the damp soil, his mind racing. The soldier, who was he? Why had he come? What was left unsaid in the tangled web of past and present? The questions piled high, threatening to suffocate him with their weight. He stood, taking a deep, steadying breath, trying to chase away the creeping chill that wasn't entirely from the cold morning air. Just as he turned to leave, something caught the corner of his eye, a faint glint beneath a layer of fallen leaves. Kneeling down, Eli brushed the dirt and debris aside to reveal a tarnished dog tag, its surface scratched and dulled by time. His hand trembled as he lifted it into the light, fingers tracing the engraved letters. Private Daniel Harper, KIA. The name struck him like a blow to the chest. Harper. It was his own name, his identity in a life he thought he'd left behind. The discovery sent a wave of disbelief crashing through him. It couldn't be real. It had to be some cruel trick, a twisted coincidence in the woods. Max's ears perked up, sensing the shift in Eli's mood, the sudden tension that tightened his shoulders and quickened his breath. The dog's gaze never wavered from Eli, as if silently urging him to hold on, to face what lay ahead. Then, from the shadows behind him, the faintest sound of footsteps stirred the stillness. Eli spun around, rifle raised instinctively, heart pounding fiercely. But the forest held only silence. No one was there. For the first time since the war, Eli felt something beyond fear or grief, a presence ancient and powerful, something that stretched beyond the bounds of time and memory. It pressed down on him with the weight of untold stories and unfinished business. He clutched the dog tag tighter, the cold metal a tether to a past that refused to stay buried. "It's not over," he whispered, voice low and raw. "Not yet." Max stood steadfast at his side, eyes steady, a silent promise in the quiet dawn. Together, they would face whatever shadows still lingered in the forest, and in Eli's heart. The days that followed blurred into a restless haze for Eli. The dog tag weighed heavily in his pocket, a constant reminder that the past had not released its grip. Each morning, the forest outside his cabin seemed darker, more alive, as if the trees themselves whispered secrets meant only for him. Max stayed close, his keen eyes scanning the woods with quiet vigilance, alert to every movement and sound. Sleep eluded Eli like a fading dream. At night, the silence of the cabin felt oppressive. Every creak and gust of wind amplified into ghostly echoes. His mind circled back to that soldier, the figure so still and silent in the mist, eyes unblinking, carrying a presence that chilled him to the bone. Was this some haunting memory clawing its way back? Or was it something far deeper, something unresolved from a time long buried? Despite his growing unease, Max remained a steadfast companion. The dog's calm breathing and steady presence were Eli's only anchors in a world that seemed increasingly unmoored. But even Max couldn't chase away the gnawing feeling that something was coming, something that demanded to be faced. One morning, just as the sun began to edge over the horizon, Eli returned to the clearing where the soldier had first appeared. The fog hung low, thick and unyielding, wrapping the forest in a gray shroud. He searched the ground meticulously, looking for any trace, any sign that could explain the presence of the ghostly figure. But there was nothing. No footprints, no disturbed leaves, no hint that someone had stood there in the early dawn hours. Max, ever alert, sniffed the damp earth, circling the clearing until he stopped at a small patch of ground. The dog sat down abruptly, eyes locked on Eli with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. It was a silent plea, a wordless message message that something important lay hidden just beyond sight. The days slipped by in a restless blur for Eli and Max. The dog tag's cold weight was a constant presence, a tether to a past that refused to stay buried. The forest around the cabin seemed alive with secrets, shadows shifting just beyond sight, and the air thick with a silent tension. Max never strayed far, his sharp eyes scanning the underbrush, ears perked for anything unusual. Eli found no comfort in the quiet woods. Each night, when darkness settled and the cabin's walls creaked with unseen life, his thoughts raced back to the soldier in the mist. The man's stillness, the hollow gaze that seemed to pierce right through time, it haunted Eli's every waking moment. Was this a phantom, born from his weary mind, or was it something far more real, something desperate to be found? Sleep was a stranger, slipping away whenever Eli closed his eyes. Max's calm breathing by his side was the only steady rhythm in a world growing ever more uncertain. Yet even the dog's loyalty couldn't quiet the growing storm inside Eli's heart. One pale dawn, compelled by a force he didn't understand, Eli returned to the clearing where the soldier had appeared. The fog hung low, thick and unyielding, wrapping the woods in a cold embrace. He searched the ground for any sign, footprints, broken branches, anything to prove the soldier's presence, but found only silence and untouched earth. Max moved with purpose, sniffing the damp soil until he stopped, sitting down abruptly beside a patch of ground. His eyes locked onto Eli with an urgency that unsettled him. What was Max trying to say? What was buried beneath those leaves? Eli crouched down, rubbing the dog's ears and whispering, "What is it, boy? What are you telling me?" The forest answered only with the sound of wind through the trees. Footsteps echoed behind Eli, sharp and sudden. He spun, rifle raised, but no one stood there. The forest swallowed the sound whole, leaving only the whisper of wind and the weight of unseen eyes. Eli stood frozen, the dog tag heavy in his palm, understanding settling deep within him. This was no mere haunting. The past had come alive, and it was demanding to be reckoned with. Max pressed close, a silent vow of loyalty and courage. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to uncover the truth buried beneath years of silence. The soldier's lips moved, but no sound escaped. Eli took a hesitant step forward, unable to tear his eyes away. He needed answers, had to understand what this apparition meant. Then, with a sudden fluid motion, the soldier vanished into the night like smoke carried on the wind. Max barked sharply, the sound slicing through the stillness, and Eli's heart leapt in his chest. He rushed to the spot where the soldier had stood. Only damp earth and rustling leaves greeted him. The figure was gone once more. Confusion churned in Eli's mind. Was this real, or was his grip on reality slipping under the weight of memories and grief? Max stood firm at his side, tail low, eyes locked on the empty space, as if he too could sense the gravity of the moment. Eli sank to his knees, clutching the dog tag tightly in his pocket. What was he meant to do with this? What message was the soldier trying to send? Suddenly, a voice echoed in Eli's mind, clear, insistent, impossible to ignore. "Find me." It wasn't Max, it wasn't his own thoughts. It was the soldier's voice, familiar, haunting, urgent. Eli's grip on the dog tag tightened. He had no choice now. He had to follow this call, this command pulling him forward through shadows and doubt. The past was reaching out, demanding resolution. The moon cast a cold silver light over the forest as the hours slipped by. Eli stood motionless, the dog tag heavy in his hand, the voice repeating almost a mantra, "Find me, find me." Then, just as Eli was about to turn away, a rustling stirred in the distance. Max's head snapped up, his body tense and coiled like a spring. A low growl rumbled deep in his throat. Eli's pulse quickened. He gripped his rifle, breath shallow, whispering, "Stay, Max." But Max never stayed when it mattered most. From the shadowed tree line emerged the soldier once again, more solid now, more real. The face still hidden in darkness, but his presence undeniable. This was no longer a ghost. This was a call for help. Max barked once and charged forward, but the soldier didn't flinch. He stood tall, waiting, eyes dark and empty, yet somehow full of meaning. "You have to understand," the soldier said, voice clearer now, steady and more defined. Eli's heart thundered. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, voice rough with emotion. "Why are you here?" The soldier stepped closer, his face still veiled by shadow but the familiarity growing. "You've been searching for me," he said, "for what happened, but you need to see, you need to know the truth." Eli's hand trembled as it rose to his chest, clutching the dog tag, the symbol of this painful journey. He needed answers, desperately. He couldn't live in this limbo of confusion any longer. "I'm not sure I can," Eli whispered. "I don't know if I can believe this." The soldier's expression softened, the presence somehow warming despite the cold night. "You don't need to believe me," he replied gently. "You need to believe in what you feel, what you know." Max ceased barking, tail wagging faintly, sensing a shift Eli couldn't yet grasp. The dog's intelligent eyes never left the soldier. Eli closed his eyes, drawing in a deep breath. Then memories came rushing back. Fragments of laughter in muddy trenches, stories shared under starless skies, a bond forged in fire and fear. The soldier's name was David. "I thought you were gone," Eli murmured, voice breaking. "I thought I lost you." David nodded slowly, sadness etched deep in his eyes. "I never left. I've always been here, watching, waiting." The truth crashed over Eli like a tidal wave. The haunting presence, the unfinished chapter, the friendship severed too soon, it all connected. David's death had left a wound that never healed, a shadow that trailed Eli through every battlefield, every lonely night, every silent cabin in the woods. "I couldn't save you," Eli said, voice thick with grief. "I couldn't save you from the war." David's face softened, a gentle comfort now. "You did all you could. You did more than anyone could ask." Max barked again, but this time it wasn't a warning. It was a call to move on, to release the weight of the past, to find peace. David turned toward the darkness, fading like mist at dawn. "It's time," he whispered. "You've carried this burden long enough." Eli remained rooted, watching the soldier disappear. But now there was no fear, only a quiet release, a sense of closure. He was not alone anymore. Max nudged Eli's hand gently, a reminder of the bond that had carried them through the darkest nights. Together, they stepped forward out of the shadows and into the light.